One of the questions I kind of always get is people ask me, what bindings do you use, or what's your setup, or how do you use? For my whole career, I actually used, on my front binding, I used a rubber binding with actually an old O'Brien Super Pro binding. I never had any bottom plate on it. I was actually always just down on the ski, and that was the actual same binding that I used for 20 years. Which was quite amazing. We took care of it, obviously replaced some rubbers. After I retired from skiing, I ventured to a hard shell system. I actually used the Reflex hard shell. This is actually a really old Silveretta release system here. But the Reflex hard shell I've kind of modified. I've cut down, I've moved the straps, I've made the buckles smaller, trying to make it as streamlined as possible so the less amount that can catch in the water. And some people ask me, why do you have these two bars on the front? Just when I look at this front bar, I just never liked the look that it was so close to the toe. I always felt like my toe was going to pop out of the front of it. So actually, Crystal Point actually came up with this, that we actually made a second one here, which is basically not doing anything. It's just a safety measure for me, or to make it feel better. I cut off the front buckle because that one doesn't need to be super tight. The middle one is the buckle that I actually do have really tight, sometimes to the point that after a few passes at the ends when I'm at the leg, I actually just have to flip it open to be able to do that. I took the top buckle off. Again, I saw some video actually, and I saw this top buckle would be just kind of vibrating a little bit, and I didn't like the idea of that vibrating, so I cut that off and I just put that in and just kind of click it over. What that is. My liner, I'm kind of partial to my liner. It's kind of getting a little falling apart right now, so maybe we'll get some winter work done on that. But, bindings are, very unique. They're unique. Everybody's feet are different, and it's what feels comfortable. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it feels comfortable to me and what I need to do. The rear, I've always been a rear kicker. I can ski in double boots. I feel when I ski in two boots, I don't feel like I quite have the flexibility of my ankle on the back. I don't really like that restriction. It makes me, just personally, my flexibility makes me feel kind of stiff or straight-legged on the ski. So I've always been rear toe. I think some of that was probably learning in England in the legs and when it was cold. One of the cool things to do was always to be able to do a beach start. We used to call it a scooter start. So you'd have a couple of coils of slack line and knee deep in water and go. And obviously you couldn't do that with double boots, so I think that's how I became a rear kicker. I don't use any foam on my rear kicker. It's just kind of a non-skid tape because I don't like anything to feel like it's spongy or moving around. I like my feet to feel really solid on the bottom. The bottom of my liner has no padding. It just kind of has a piece of leather on the bottom, so I get full feel into the bottom of the ski. As I remove the boot, on my boot also, I didn't want the boot to be able to feel like I had any rock from side to side. I believe the slalom binding and the ultimate control for slalom is having the bottom of the foot anchored totally secure. There's no point in having it tied around your ankle and your shin if your foot is moving around. So to me, it all starts from the bottom up. So I really like to have the lower part of my foot really solid. In the bottom here, I actually filled this area with Bondo so that when I put the boot in and clip it in, it actually fits to exactly the same place every time. And there's zero rock in the bottom of the boot. I actually just have this to match hole patterns on the standard skis. It's match the industry hole pattern. I've actually just mounted my Reflex onto, this is actually an old HO plate, just so that I could get the same hole pattern. So when we're testing skis, going from ski to ski, my whole hole pattern works together. But I use our standard fin. I like the 4-hole fin. I run my settings on the 6.0 that I ran at the Senior Worlds down in Mexico. My distance from the tail, I ran .773 from the tail. I was 2.513 deep and 6.825 measured with the tips long. that's kind of where I felt most comfortable. That gave me a great onside turn. I had a lot of confidence on that side. I really like the way this 6.0 works. I felt like I could go off the dock and I could just attack it from, every pass right from the get-go. I have a lot of feedback. Just very confident that the ski is solid, that I was able to go and attack it.